The clock on the garage wall showed 11:47 p.m., but Diego was still bent over the hood of an old pickup truck. The fluorescent light above flickered occasionally, casting dancing shadows across the concrete floor covered in oil stains and scattered tools. This was his world, a small auto repair shop on the edge of town where the rent was cheap and the customers were few. Diego wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of grease across his skin. 3 years he had been trying to make this place work. 3 long years of hoping that tomorrow would bring enough customers to pay the bills. Tonight was like many others, working late on a repair job that barely covered the cost of parts, let alone his time. The storm outside had been raging for hours. Rain hammered against the metal roof like thousands of tiny hammers, and the wind howled through the gaps in the old building. Diego had grown used to these sounds. They were better than silence, which only reminded him of how alone he was in this struggle. He reached for his wrench, planning to tighten the last few bolts before calling it a night. That's when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it over the noise of the storm. It was a voice, weak and barely audible, calling out a single word. "Help!" Diego froze, his hand halfway to the toolbox. He looked around the empty garage, wondering if his tired mind was playing tricks on him. Working alone for so many hours could make a person hear things that weren't there, but then he heard it again, clearer this time. "Please, help me." The voice was coming from somewhere behind the stacks of old tires he kept in the back corner of the garage. Diego grabbed a flashlight from his workbench and walked slowly toward the sound. His heart was beating faster now. In 3 years of running this shop, nobody had ever been back there except him. As he rounded the tire stack, the beam of his flashlight revealed something that made him gasp. A young woman was sitting on the floor, leaning against the concrete wall. Her dark hair was matted with blood and her clothes were torn and dirty. She looked up at him with eyes that struggled to focus. "Please," she whispered. "I need help." Diego dropped to his knees beside her, his mind racing. "What happened? How did you get in here?" She pointed weakly toward the back of the garage. "My car. It went through your fence. The storm. I couldn't see the road." Diego looked where she was pointing and saw it. A section of his back fence had been completely destroyed. Through the gap, he could make out the shape of an expensive-looking car, its front end crumpled against the concrete barrier he had built years ago to protect his property. "I crawled in here," she continued, her voice getting weaker. "I was so scared. There was blood in my eyes and I couldn't think straight." Diego's military training from years ago kicked in. He had served as a medic's assistant before coming home to start his garage. "Let me look at that cut," he said gently, shining the flashlight on her forehead. The wound wasn't as bad as all the blood made it appear, but head injuries were tricky. She could have a concussion or worse. "What's your name?" he asked, checking her pupils with the flashlight. "Lisa," she replied. "Lisa Chen. I'm a student at the college. I was driving home from the library when the storm got really bad." "Okay, Lisa, I'm Diego. I'm going to call an ambulance for you, all right?" He reached for his phone, but Lisa grabbed his arm. "Will they come? The roads looked so bad when I was driving." Diego dialed 911 anyway. The dispatcher told him what he feared. Due to flooding on several main roads, the ambulance would take at least 40 minutes to reach them. Maybe longer. "We can't wait that long," he told Lisa. "I need to clean that cut and make sure you're okay." Diego ran to his small office and grabbed the first aid kit he kept there. He also brought a clean towel and a bottle of water. When he returned, Lisa was trying to stand up. No, he said, gently helping her sit back down. "You need to stay, still. Head injuries are serious." "I feel so dizzy," she admitted, "and my head is pounding." "That's normal, but I need to keep you awake until the paramedics get here." Diego began carefully cleaning the blood from her forehead. The cut wasn't deep, but it had bled a lot. "Tell me about school. What are you studying?" "Pre-med," Lisa said, wincing as he cleaned the wound. "I want to be a doctor. I was at the library studying for my chemistry exam." "That's amazing," Diego said, genuinely impressed. "You must be really smart." Lisa gave a weak smile. My parents think so. They sacrificed a lot to send me to college. They work at a restaurant and they've been saving for years to pay for my education. Diego continued cleaning her wound, being as gentle as possible. What kind of doctor do you want to be? I want to help people who can't afford good medical care, she said. People like my parents, they work so hard but they can't always afford to go to the doctor when they're sick. As Diego applied antiseptic to the cut, he felt a strange connection to this young woman. Her family's story reminded him of his own struggles. That's a good dream, he said. The world needs more doctors who care about regular people. What about you? Lisa asked. Have you always wanted to fix cars? Diego paused in his work. Nobody had asked him that question in a long time. I learned about engines in the military. When I got out, I thought I could make a good living doing something I was good at. But it's been harder than I expected. Business is slow? Very slow, Diego admitted. He wasn't sure why he was being so honest with a stranger, but something about the situation made him want to talk. Some days I wonder if I should just give up and find a regular job somewhere. But you're good at this, right? Lisa asked. I mean, you knew exactly what to do when you found me hurt. I guess so, Diego said, finishing the bandage on her forehead. I just wish being good at something was enough. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the storm outside. Lisa's color was looking better and she seemed more alert. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why did you help me? You don't even know me. I could be anyone. Diego thought about her question. I guess because everyone deserves help when they need it. And because I know what it's like to be scared and alone. You seem like a good person, Lisa said. I bet your business will get better. I hope so, Diego replied. But even if it doesn't, at least I helped someone tonight. In the distance, they could hear the sound of sirens getting closer. The ambulance was finally arriving. Diego helped Lisa stand up slowly, supporting her weight as they walked toward the front of the garage. Thank you, she said as they waited for the paramedics. You probably saved my life. Anyone would have done the same thing, Diego replied. But as he watched the ambulance lights flashing in the darkness, he had a feeling that this night would be different from all the others. He had no idea that finding this young woman in his garage would be the beginning of something that would change everything about his life. The paramedics took Lisa away into the storm, but something had shifted in Diego's small, quiet world. For the first time in months, he felt like maybe tomorrow might bring something better than just another day of struggling to survive. 2 days had passed since the storm, and Diego couldn't stop thinking about what had happened in his garage. He kept looking at the corner where he had found Lisa, wondering if she was okay. The hospital had taken her away that night, and he hadn't heard anything since. Part of him wanted to call and check on her, but he didn't want to seem like a stranger bothering her family. He was working on an old sedan when he heard a car pull up outside. Through the grimy window, he saw a sleek black Mercedes parking in front of his shop. Diego wiped his hands on his coveralls and walked outside, squinting in the afternoon sun. A well-dressed man in his 50s stepped out of the Mercedes. His suit probably cost more than Diego made in a month. Behind him, a woman emerged from the passenger seat, also dressed expensively. They looked around at Diego's small garage with expressions that made it clear they had never been in a place like this before. Are you Diego? The man asked, his voice carrying a slight accent. Yes, sir. Can I help you? I'm Robert Chen, and this is my wife Maria. Our daughter Lisa told us what you did for her during the storm. Diego felt his heart skip a beat. How is she? Is she okay? Maria Chen stepped forward, and Diego could see tears forming in her eyes. She's fine, thanks to you. The doctor said if she had stayed outside in that storm much longer, she could have gone into shock from her injuries and the cold. We came to thank you, Robert said, reaching into his jacket, and to pay you for the towing and any damage to your property. He pulled out a thick envelope and held it toward Diego. There's $5,000 here. We know it probably doesn't cover everything, but no, Diego said quickly, stepping back. I can't take that. Robert looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, I don't want your money. I helped your daughter because it was the right thing to do, not because I expected to get paid. Maria exchanged a look with her husband. But you must have expenses. Your fence was damaged and you spent your time helping her. The fence needed fixing anyway, Diego lied. The truth was he had been putting off that repair for months because he couldn't afford the materials. And I'm just glad Lisa is okay. Robert stared at Diego for a long moment. You're serious. You really don't want anything. That's right. But why? Maria asked. People don't usually help strangers without expecting something in return. Diego thought about how to explain it. Look, I grew up in foster care. I know what it's like when people help you just because they can, not because they want something back. Those are the people who make a real difference. The couple stood there in silence, clearly not knowing what to say. Finally, Robert spoke up. Lisa said you were different. She was right. She wants to see you again, Maria added. To thank you properly, would that be okay? Before Diego could answer, another car pulled up. This time it was Lisa herself, driving a small Honda that looked much more practical than her parents' Mercedes. She got out carefully, a small bandage still visible on her forehead. Mom, Dad, I told you I wanted to come by myself first, she said, walking over to them. We just wanted to meet the man who saved our daughter, Robert explained. Lisa turned to Diego with a smile. How are you doing? I've been thinking about you. I'm good. More importantly, how are you feeling? Much better. The doctor said I had a mild concussion, but I'm healing well. She looked around at the garage. I actually came to ask about my car. Is it fixable? Diego walked with her around to the back where her BMW was still sitting behind his building. The front end was pretty badly damaged, but he had seen worse. It'll need a new bumper, headlights, and some engine work, he said, looking it over. But yes, it's definitely fixable. How much will it cost? Diego did some quick math in his head. For a car like this, most shops would charge at least $4,000. But looking at Lisa and remembering their conversation that night, he found himself saying, $2,000 should cover it. Robert stepped forward. That seems low for this kind of damage. I do good work for fair prices, Diego replied. That's how I was taught. Lisa studied Diego's face. You're giving me a discount, aren't you? I'm giving you a fair price. No, she said firmly. You're being too nice again, just like when you wouldn't take money from my parents. Diego shrugged. Maybe I just believe in treating people right. Over the next week, Lisa came by the garage every day after her classes. At first, she said she just wanted to check on the progress of her car repairs. But Diego noticed she always seemed to have time to talk. Don't you have studying to do? He asked one afternoon as she sat on an old chair watching him work. I study better after I take breaks, she said. Besides, I like watching you work. You're really good at this. It's just practice. I've been fixing things since I was a kid. Tell me about that, Lisa said. What was it like growing up in foster care? Diego paused in his work. Most people didn't ask him personal questions. It was hard. You move around a lot, never really feeling like you belong anywhere. But I learned to fix things because broken stuff doesn't get replaced in foster homes. You either fix it or do without. That must have been lonely. Sometimes. But it taught me to be independent. And it taught me that helping people feels good even when you can't expect anything back. Lisa was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about what you said that night, about knowing what it's like to be scared and alone. Yeah? I realized I don't really know what that feels like. My parents have always taken care of everything. Maybe too well. Diego looked at her curiously. What do you mean? I mean, I've never had to worry about money or whether I could afford something. When my car broke down, my first thought was just to call my dad. But you built this whole business from nothing. That takes real courage. It takes desperation more than courage, Diego said with a laugh. When you don't have other options, you do what you have to do. But you could have gotten a regular job somewhere. Why take the risk of starting your own business? Diego set down his wrench and really looked at Lisa. Because I wanted to prove I could do something worthwhile. That I wasn't just some foster kid who would never amount to anything. And have you proved it? Diego looked around at his small, struggling garage. Ask me in a few years. I think you already have, Lisa said quietly. Look at how you helped me. Look at how you treat your customers. Look at the quality of your work. This place might be small, but it's honest. That matters. Something in her voice made Diego feel like maybe she understood him better than most people ever had. Here was this college student from a wealthy family, and somehow she got what he was trying to do. Your parents seem nice, he said, changing the subject, because the conversation was getting too deep. They are. They work incredibly hard. They came to this country with nothing and built a successful restaurant business. But sometimes I think they want to protect me too much from the real world. Maybe they just love you. I know they do, but I want to do something meaningful with my life, like they did, and like you're doing. As the days passed, Diego found himself looking forward to Lisa's visits. She would tell him about her classes, her dreams of becoming a doctor, and her worries about living up to her parents' expectations. In return, he found himself sharing stories about his childhood, his time in the military, and his hopes for the garage. You know what I think? Lisa said one evening as Diego was finishing up work on her car. What's that? I think we understand each other because we both know what it's like to feel like we have something to prove. Diego considered this. Maybe you're right. Your car should be ready tomorrow, he added, feeling suddenly sad about it. Once her car was fixed, she probably wouldn't have any reason to keep coming by. Good, Lisa said. But I hope that doesn't mean I have to stop visiting. Diego looked at her in surprise. Why would you want to keep coming here? Lisa smiled. Because I like talking to someone who sees the world the way I do, and because I think we make good friends. Friends. Diego hadn't had a real friend in years. The idea that this smart, kind young woman wanted to be his friend seemed almost too good to be true. I'd like that, he said simply. As Lisa left that evening, Diego realized something had changed in his life. For the first time since opening the garage, he didn't feel completely alone in his struggle. Maybe having a friend would make all the difference. 3 months had passed since Lisa first walked into Diego's garage, and their friendship had grown stronger with each passing day. She still came by regularly, sometimes with textbooks to study while Diego worked, other times just to talk about life. But lately, Diego noticed she had been watching him more carefully, asking questions about his business that seemed deeper than casual curiosity. How many customers do you usually get in a week? She asked one Tuesday afternoon, sitting cross-legged on the floor with her accounting textbook open. Diego wiped his hands on a rag and thought about it. Maybe 8 or 10 on a good week, sometimes less. And how much do you charge for an average job? Depends on what's wrong. Simple stuff like oil changes may be $30. Bigger repairs can be a few hundred. Lisa scribbled some numbers in the margin of her textbook. Diego couldn't help but notice the serious expression on her face. Why? All the business questions, he asked. Just curious, she said. But Diego could tell there was more to it. The truth was, Lisa had been doing a lot of thinking lately. In her business classes, she was learning about marketing, customer service, and financial planning. Every lesson made her think about Diego's garage and all the potential she saw being wasted. She watched him work with customers and noticed how honest he was, sometimes to his own disadvantage. Just last week, a woman brought in her car for what she thought was a major transmission problem. Any other shop would have charged her hundreds of dollars. But Diego spent 20 minutes checking everything and discovered it was just a loose cable. He fixed it for free and told her to have a nice day. You could have charged her at least $50 for the diagnostic, Lisa had said after the woman left. But it only took me a few minutes to fix, Diego replied. Why would I charge her for work I didn't really do? That's when Lisa realized the problem wasn't Diego's skills or his character. The problem was that he was too good for his own business success. He needed someone to help him see his own value. The garage itself told the same story. The equipment was old but well maintained. Diego's tools were organized perfectly, and he kept detailed records of every job in a notebook that was falling apart. But the building looked tired. The sign out front was faded, and there was no real system for bringing in new customers. Lisa had been thinking about this for weeks. She had an idea, but she wasn't sure how Diego would react to it. He was proud and independent, and she didn't want to offend him. "Diego," she said finally, closing her textbook, "can I ask you something serious?" He looked up from the engine he was working on. "Sure. Do you trust me?" The question caught him off guard. "Of course I trust you." "Why?" "Because I want to talk to you about something, and I need you to hear me out before you say no." Diego set down his wrench and gave her his full attention. "Okay, I'm listening." Lisa took a deep breath. "I think you're the best mechanic I've ever met. You're honest, skilled, and you care about your customers. But I also think you're not charging enough. You're not marketing yourself well, and this location is hurting your business." Diego felt his defenses go up. "Lisa, I appreciate—" "Wait," she said, holding up her hand. "Let me finish. I'm not criticizing you. I'm saying you have something really valuable here, but you need help to show other people how valuable it is." "What kind of help?" Lisa's heart was beating fast. This was the moment she had been building up to for weeks. "I want to become your business partner." Diego stared at her in silence for a long moment. "What?" "I'm serious. I've been learning about business in school, and I can see exactly what this place needs. You handle all the technical work, which you're amazing at. I handle the business side, marketing, customer service, bookkeeping, finding new customers. Lisa, you're 19 years old. So, I'm studying business, I understand social media, and I know how to talk to people. Plus, I have some money saved up that we could use to improve this place." Diego shook his head. "I can't take money from a college student." "It's not charity," Lisa said quickly. "It's an investment. I give you money to upgrade equipment and move to a better location. In return, I own part of the business. We split the profits. Where would you get that kind of money?" Lisa looked down at her hands. "My grandmother left me some money when she died last year. It's been sitting in the bank because I wasn't sure what to do with it. But I think she would have liked this idea." Diego walked over to his workbench and leaned against it, processing what Lisa had said. "How much money are we talking about?" $50,000. Diego nearly choked. $50,000? Lisa, that's serious money. You can't just risk that on a failing garage. "It's not failing," Lisa said firmly. "It's just not reaching its potential, and I'm not risking the money blindly. I've been watching you work for 3 months. I've seen how you treat customers, how skilled you are, how much integrity you have. Those are the things that make businesses successful in the long run. But what if it doesn't work? What if we lose your money? Then we lose it together. But I don't think that's going to happen." Diego was quiet for a long time, staring at the concrete floor. Lisa waited, knowing this was a lot for him to process. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why would you want to do this?" "Because I believe in you," Lisa said simply. "And because I think we could build something really good together, something that helps people and makes money at the same time." "But you're going to be a doctor. Why do you care about an auto repair shop?" Lisa smiled. "I'll still be a doctor someday, but that's 4 more years of college and then medical school. This could be something we do now while I'm still studying. And who knows? Maybe having a successful business will help me understand how to run a medical practice someday." Diego looked around his small garage, imagining what it could look like with new equipment and a fresh start. "What would you want to change?" "First, we find a better location, somewhere with more foot traffic and better visibility. Then we upgrade your equipment and tools. After that, we work on marketing, get you on social media, maybe create a website, definitely get some good reviews online." "I don't know anything about social media." "That's okay, I do. You focus on what you're good at, and I'll focus on what I'm good at." Diego thought about all the nights he had stayed awake worrying about rent, about whether he would have enough customers to keep the lights on. The idea of having a partner, someone to share the stress and the work, was both terrifying and appealing. What would your parents think about this? He asked. They'd probably think I'm crazy at first, Lisa admitted. But once they see how well you work and how honest you are, they'll understand. They respect people who work hard and treat others fairly. And if the business fails, then we'll learn something from it and move on. But Diego, I really don't think it's going to fail. I think we're going to be successful. Diego walked over to the window and looked out at the street. A few cars drove by, but none of them stopped. On a good day, maybe 1 or 2 potential customers would notice his shop. With better location and marketing, that number could be 10 times higher. How would we split everything? He asked. 60-40? Lisa said immediately. You get 60% because this is your expertise and your dream. I get 40% because I'm putting up the money and handling the business side. That seems fair to you? More than fair. You're the one with the skills that make this work. Diego turned, back to face her. Lisa was sitting on the floor looking up at him with hope and determination in her eyes. In 3 months she had become his closest friend, and now she was offering to become his business partner. I need time to think about this, he said. Of course. Take all the time you need. But even as he said it, Diego could feel something changing inside him. For the first time in years, he was allowing himself to imagine a future that was bigger than just surviving day to day. Maybe, with Lisa's help, he could build something he could actually be proud of. Diego spent 3 sleepless nights thinking about Lisa's proposal. He would lie in bed in his small apartment above the garage, staring at the ceiling and weighing his options. The safe choice was to keep things as they were, struggling but independent. The risky choice was to trust someone else with his dreams and maybe lose everything. On Thursday morning, he made his decision. Okay, he said when Lisa walked into the garage with her usual cup of coffee and textbook. Let's do it. Lisa nearly dropped her coffee. Really? You're serious? I'm serious, but I have some conditions. Name them. Diego had rehearsed this conversation in his head all night. First, we put everything in writing, official contracts, legal papers, the whole thing. Second, if this doesn't work out, you get your money back before I take anything. And third, we do this step by step. No huge changes all at once. Lisa grinned and stuck out her hand. Deal. They shook on it, and Diego felt like his life had just taken a turn he never saw coming. The first month was harder than either of them expected. Lisa might have been studying business, but running an actual business was completely different from reading about it in textbooks. Diego might have been great with engines, but working with a partner meant learning to share decisions he had, always made alone. Their first real argument happened over the location. Lisa had found a space on Main Street that was 3 times bigger than Diego's current garage, with huge windows and plenty of parking. It was also 3 times more expensive. We can't afford that rent, Diego said, looking at the numbers Lisa had written on a piece of paper. We can't afford not to take it, Lisa replied. Look, I've been tracking your customer patterns. You get maybe 10 people a week here. That location would give us 30 or 40 customers a week easy. But what if you're wrong? What if we move there and nobody comes? Lisa pulled out her laptop and showed Diego something that made his eyes widen. She had created a Facebook page for the garage and posted before and after photos of some of Diego's best repair jobs. In just 2 weeks, the page had gotten over 500 likes and dozens of comments from people asking about services. I'm not wrong, she said confidently. People want good, honest car repair. We just need to make it easier for them to find us. The move took 3 weeks. Diego's old equipment looked lost in the new spacious garage, but Lisa had plans for that too. She had researched the best deals on diagnostic computers, hydraulic lifts, and other modern tools that would let Diego work faster and take on more complex jobs. This scanner cost $15,000, Diego said, running his hands over the new diagnostic computer. Are you sure we need something this expensive? It'll pay for itself in 3 months, Lisa said, reading from the manual. Look, with this machine, you can diagnose problems in 10 minutes that used to take you an hour. That means you can help more customers every day. She was right, but it still made Diego nervous to see so much money being spent so quickly. The real test came when they opened in their new location. Lisa had been busy on social media, telling everyone about their grand opening. She had even convinced her father to spread the word to his restaurant customers. But Diego still wasn't prepared for what happened on their first Monday morning. By 8 a.m., there were 5 cars waiting outside. By noon, Diego was working on his 8th customer of the day. By evening, he was exhausted, but amazed. "I've never had this many customers in a single week, let alone a single day," he told Lisa as they counted up the day's earnings. "This is just the beginning," Lisa said. But Diego could see she was excited too. "Wait until word really gets around about the quality of your work." The word did get around faster than either of them expected. Lisa's social media strategy was working perfectly. She would take photos of Diego's work, always with the customer's permission, and post them online, with explanations of what had been fixed and why. People loved seeing the process and understanding what was happening to their cars. But Lisa's biggest contribution wasn't the marketing. It was the way she handled the front desk and customer service. Diego had always been good with his hands, but he was shy when it came to explaining problems to customers or discussing prices. Lisa was natural at it. "Mrs. Rodriguez, let me show you exactly what Diego found wrong with your engine," she would say, pulling up photos on her tablet. "See this part here? It's completely worn out, which is why your car was making that noise. Diego can replace it for $200, including labor, and your car will run like new." Customers loved Lisa's approach. She spoke in terms they could understand. She was always honest about costs, and she made sure they felt comfortable with every decision. Many of them started asking specifically for Lisa when they called to make appointments. "You're really good at this," Diego told her one evening as they were closing up. "Better than I ever was with customers." "You're good too," Lisa said. "You just explain things differently. You use technical terms because you know what you're talking about. I translate what you know into language regular people can understand. We make a good team. We do." 6 months after the partnership began, they faced their biggest challenge yet. Diego's old mentor from the military, a man named Frank who had taught him most of what he knew about engines, stopped by the garage unexpectedly. Frank looked around. The new space with its modern equipment and busy atmosphere. "This is impressive, Diego. But I have to ask, are you sure you know what you're doing with this partnership?" "What do you mean?" "I mean you're young, she's younger, and this is a lot of money and responsibility. What happens if things go wrong? Between you two?" Diego had been asking himself the same question for months. "I guess we'll deal with that if it happens." "And what happens to your customers if you two have a falling out? What happens to the people who depend on this place?" That night, Diego brought up Frank's concerns with Lisa. "He's not wrong," Diego said. "We should probably talk about what happens if this partnership doesn't work out long term." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Do you want out?" "No," Diego said, quickly. "Do you?" "Not at all. This is the best thing I've ever been part of. But Frank has a point. We should have a plan." They spent the next week working with a lawyer to create a detailed partnership agreement that covered every possible scenario. It wasn't a fun process, but it made both of them feel more secure about their future together. By the end of their first year, Diego's garage had become the most recommended auto repair shop in town. They had hired 2 additional mechanics to help with the workload, and Lisa was taking business classes at night to learn even more about running a company. "Look at this," Lisa said one evening, showing Diego their financial reports. "We're making more money than either of us dreamed possible a year ago." Diego looked at the numbers and shook his head in amazement. "I never thought I'd own a business that actually made a profit." "It's not just about the money, though," Lisa said. "Look at what we've built here. People trust us. They bring their families here. They recommend us to their friends. We're actually helping people." She was right. The garage had become more than just a business. It was a place where people felt comfortable bringing their problems, knowing they would be treated fairly and honestly. Diego had customers who drove from other towns just because they had heard about his reputation. "I couldn't have done this without you," Diego told Lisa. And I couldn't have learned what I've learned without you, she replied. We really do make a good team. As Diego locked up the garage that night, he realized that taking the risk with Lisa had been the best decision of his life. They hadn't just built a successful business together. They had created something that mattered to their community and to themselves. 2 years had passed since that stormy night when Diego first found Lisa in his garage. Now, as he stood in their thriving auto repair shop, watching 3 mechanics work on different cars while Lisa handled a steady stream of customers at the front desk, he could barely believe how much their lives had changed. The business was doing better than either of them had ever imagined. They had regular customers who trusted them completely, contracts with local delivery companies, and even some luxury car owners who drove across town specifically to bring their expensive vehicles to Diego's shop. The money was good, but something else was bothering Diego lately. You've been quiet all week, Lisa said as they were closing up on a Friday evening. What's going on? Diego finished wiping down his tools and looked around the garage. I don't know. I should be happy, right? We've got everything we wanted. The business is successful, we're making good money, people respect what we do. But I feel like something's missing. Lisa sat down on one of the office chairs and studied Diego's face. Tell me what you're thinking. Remember when we first started this partnership? You said you wanted to help people who couldn't afford good medical care. You had this bigger purpose behind everything you were doing. I still want that. I know, but what about me? What's my bigger purpose? Am I just going to fix cars for the rest of my life? Lisa was quiet for a moment. What would you want to do if you could do anything? Diego had been asking himself that question for weeks. You know what I keep thinking about? All those kids in foster care who age out of the system with no skills and no direction. Kids like I was. What about them? What if there was a way to teach them something useful? Something that could give them a real career instead of just minimum wage jobs? Lisa's eyes lit up. Like teaching them auto repair? Maybe. Or electrical work, or plumbing, or construction. Trades that actually pay well and that people always need. Diego, that's an amazing idea. But I don't know how to teach. I barely finished high school myself. Lisa stood up and started pacing, which Diego had learned meant she was getting excited about something. You don't need a college degree to teach trades. You need experience and knowledge, which you definitely have. And you need to care about your students, which you absolutely would. Even if I could teach, where would I do it? We can't afford to start another business. What if we didn't start another business? What if we expanded this one? Diego looked at her curiously. What do you mean? I mean, what if we started an apprenticeship program right here? Young people who need job training could work in the garage during the day and learn from you. They'd get hands-on experience with real customers, and we'd get extra help during busy times. The more Diego thought about it, the more excited he became. We could start small. Maybe just 1 or 2 kids at first. Exactly. And if it works, we could expand. Maybe eventually partner with the community college or the state job training programs. That weekend, Diego couldn't stop thinking about Lisa's suggestion. On Monday morning, he made a phone call to the county social services office. By Wednesday, he was sitting in a meeting with 3 caseworkers who dealt with foster kids aging out of the system. This is exactly what these young people need, said Janet, the supervisor. Most of them have no family support and no job skills. They end up working fast food or retail for years because nobody ever taught them there were better options. How many kids are we talking about? Diego asked. In this county? Maybe 30 or 40 every year who could really benefit from a program like this. Diego left that meeting with a head full of ideas and a heart full of purpose he hadn't felt since starting the garage. Lisa was right. This could be the bigger meaning he had been looking for. Their first apprentice was an 18-year-old named Carlos, who had been in foster care since he was 12. He was quiet and suspicious at first, clearly expecting Diego to treat him like a burden or charity case. I'm not looking for a favor, Carlos said on his first day. I want to earn my place here. Good, Diego replied. Because I'm not running a charity. I'm running a business, and I need people who want to work. Diego started Carlos with basic tasks, organizing tools, cleaning parts, watching Diego work, on simple repairs. But he also made sure to explain everything he was doing and why. "See this noise the engine is making?" Diego would say. "That tells us the timing belt is loose. Carlos, hand me that wrench and watch how I adjust it." Within a month, Carlos was diagnosing simple problems on his own. Within 3 months, he was doing oil changes and brake jobs without supervision. More importantly, Diego could see the young man's confidence growing every day. "I never thought I was smart enough to learn this stuff," Carlos told Diego one afternoon. "Intelligence has nothing to do with it," Diego replied. "It's about paying attention and practicing. You're doing great." Word spread quickly about Diego's apprenticeship program. Soon he had social workers calling regularly, asking if he could take on more young people. Lisa helped him develop a formal application process and create partnerships with local organizations that worked with at-risk youth. By the end of the year, Diego was training 4 apprentices at a time. The garage had become more than just a repair shop. It was a place where young people learned not just job skills, but confidence, responsibility, and the value of honest work. "You know what the best part is?" Lisa said one evening as they watched their current group of apprentices finishing up their work for the day. "What's that?" "Look at their faces. They're proud of what they're doing. They walk differently now than when they first got here." Diego knew exactly what she meant. These kids arrived angry, scared, or hopeless. They left with skills, confidence, and most importantly, a future they could control. The program caught the attention of the local newspaper, then the state job training office, and eventually a few politicians who were looking for successful examples of youth programs to highlight. Diego found himself being interviewed and asked to speak at conferences about his approach to apprenticeship training. "I never expected this," he told Lisa, after returning from a state capitol meeting where he had presented their program to government officials. "Expected what?" "To be someone that other people look up to have something important to say about helping kids." Lisa smiled. "I've been looking up to you since the night you found me in your garage. You just needed to find a way to share what you had to offer with more people." As Diego looked around the garage that evening, he realized Lisa was right about something else too. That stormy night 2 years ago, when he had helped a wounded college student, he thought he was just doing the right thing for someone in trouble. He had no idea that saving Lisa would end up saving him, not from physical danger, but from a life of just getting by. Lisa had shown him that his skills and character were worth something bigger than he had ever imagined. She had helped him build not just a successful business, but a way to make a real difference in the world. "You know what's funny?" Diego said to Lisa as they locked up the garage. "What?" "I spent so many years feeling like nobody ever helped me, but it turns out the best way to help myself was to help other people." "That's not funny," Lisa said. "That's wisdom." Diego laughed. "When did we get so wise?" "I think it happened gradually," Lisa replied. "One person at a time, one day at a time, one act of kindness at a time." As they walked to their cars, Diego thought about all the lives that had been changed by that one stormy night. His own, Lisa's, Carlos, and all the other apprentices, the customers who trusted them, the families who had been helped. It was proof that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can create the biggest changes in the world.